Good evening and welcome to Alan's Italy. Tonight was supposed to have been a show in which I was going to focus on the history of the Woodstock Public Access television station. We were supposed to have Bart Friedman and Toby Carey on, who are some of the pioneers of the original show and videographers from the 1970s. But at the last minute, I received a phone call that Bart was not feeling well, so we felt that it was best to postpone that particular show. So for those of you who are tuning in, expecting to see that, I'm very sorry, but we decided to change the show. And I always have a backup show, so I decided that we were going to do this one instead. Now, I'm not sure exactly when that other show is going to be on. Perhaps it could be next week, I'm not sure, but I certainly cannot predict when Bart will be feeling well enough to do this, but I really would like to say to Bart that, none of this is really important. The most important thing is that he get better. So, from all of us here and all of us in the Woodstock viewing community, we just like to say that we hope you get better soon. So, I wasn't prepared to do this show quite tonight, but I had to do some scrounging around and some modifications, and this is actually a show that I had, already prepared, because I always have a show kind of in reserve. And this is a show about one of the really extraordinary locations in Italy. And the name is Fiesole. Fiesole is a town that was created by the Etruscans in the sometime between the 8th and the 9th century BC. So it's very, very old. It used to have a different name. I have a couple of the names it used to be called here, Fiesole and Vipsule, and it was part of the Etruscan Confederation that we've spoken about a few times. It became a Roman, became under Roman control in the 3rd century BC, and most of the ruins that we're going to be seeing tonight from Fiesole are related to the Roman ruins that existed. Some very famous people have lived in this town, namely Francesco Landini, who, for those of you who are well-read in the Renaissance, will know that he was a Renaissance composer, poet, and singer. He used to be in the employ of Lorenzo de' Medici, and indeed used to entertain the Medici family with his poetry and his singing. Also the very famous sculptor Mina da Fiesole, who's a very famous sculptor, and I'm not sure, I put this show together in the last couple of hours, and I don't know whether he was the 15th or the 16th century, but those are some of the famous people. Fiesole is a very interesting town, and we will be talking about it in just a moment, but first, you're probably wondering who are these people, and these people are friends of Laura and mine. Their names are Diane and David, and I was at a party with them about 3 or 4 weeks ago, a really great party at a friend of ours, and I was talking to David, and he said they loved when they were in Italy, and that he had a question for me. This is a great picture, incidentally, because the backdrop is of course, the City of Florence. Not from Fiesole, unfortunately. This is from probably, I would think, by looking at this, probably somewhere in the Piazzale Michelangelo area. And they said they had a wonderful time. But anyway, he said to me, can I name the 4 pietas that were sculpted by Michelangelo? And I said, yeah, of course, I know quite a bit about that. So of course, I didn't have these pictures. This is, for the viewing audience's purposes. But of course, I mentioned the most famous one, and that is the Pietà by Michelangelo that is currently located in St. Peter's Cathedral in Rome. And this is, in addition to being the most famous, probably, in my opinion, the most beautiful sculpture that I've ever seen. Another one is the Rondinini Pietà, which is located in Milano at something called the Castello Forzeco, which was the palace of the Sforza family. And it wound up here because, honestly, I don't exactly know why it wound up in Milano, but he may have sculpted it there. It may have been bought by somebody. And this was the sculpture that he was working on the day he died. Now, he died at the age of 89, so he was still sculpting, believe it or not, when he was 89. And this is obviously unfinished. Then there's the Pietà, which is also known as a deposition. Deposition is a Pietà, which means that, it's a sculpture containing the Madonna and Jesus, usually in her lap. This is a little different, though. This is when they were removing Jesus from the cross, and the fellow at the top of that is Nicodemus. And supposedly, Nicodemus is really a self-portrait of Michelangelo. So this is, and we will be discussing this during the show we're doing with Rick, who was with us last week, of the Museum dell'Opera del Duomo in Florence, but I could not think of the other one. So his wife, Diane, happened to be passing by our conversation at that moment, and we asked her if she knew. And she said, yes, of course. The fourth one is located in the Galleria Accademia in Florence, which, of course, is the location of arguably, Michelangelo's other most famous sculpture, and that is the sculpture of David that he did between 1498 and 1502. And if you go to that museum and you walk up the corridor that leads to Michelangelo's David, there at the end, as you could see, if you take a look on the right side, there's a sculpture, and that sculpture is this one, which is supposedly his fourth Pietà. So she said it's located at that gallery in Florence, and I disputed it because, by now I sort of have this feeling that I sort of know all of this stuff, which I obviously do not and never will. But I did some research, and sure enough, I am proud to report that the fourth Pietà is located in the Galleria Accademia in Florence. It's called the Palestrina Pietà, and it's also unfinished, but it's one of the 6 unfinished sculptures that appear in the Galleria Accademia in Florence as they line up the hallway between, as you walk through this hallway. They're all over there. You can't see the only one you can see there is the Pietà, but actually there are 5 others on both sides of that little alleyway, on that little corridor that leads to the location of Michelangelo's David in the distance. So my apologies to Diane, and of course I thank her very much for setting me straight in that regard. So now we're back to Fiesole. Fiesole is located about, I would say, a 30-minute bus ride from the center of Florence. And, it's not visited by too many tourists. It's mostly visited by locals and by people in the know who would like to go to a very, very charming town where there are some Etruscan and Roman ruins, where there are a couple of wonderful museums. There is some magnificent views, some wonderful restaurants, and in the summer, this is the place to go because it's much cooler than it is in Florence. You could see in the foreground the city of Florence, and up on the hill, the bell tower of the church, the cathedral in Fiesole. And if people want to cool off, and in fact some people even live up there, they would rather be up there than in the bowl. You know, Florence is kind of a bowl, and there's mountains all around it, and in the summer you don't get too many breezes. I've been there many, many times in the summer. Not in a while though, because it's really very, very difficult. But this is where people go to cool off, and that's where our tour is going to be for tonight's show. So this is what Fiesole looks like as you start to approach it from a road. Now, we were there recently, and I'll talk about that a little more as the show progresses, but we took a taxi up to Fiesole, and I would not recommend that. I had no idea it was going to wind up costing me as much as it did. It wound up costing $30 for a taxi ride from the center of Florence up to Fiesole, which was a big mistake because all we had to do was take a take a bus, which would have cost a lot less money, but we didn't do it. And let's place it. Of course, it's in Tuscany, and there's Florence right there in the middle of the green, which is, you know, the Tuscan region that I have been focusing on over the past several, months. And there's a map of Firenze with Fiesole right on top. You can see the little red dot over there to the top, and slightly to the right of Florence is Fiesole. And you can see that it is a very short ride to get from Florence to Fiesole. And this is what Fiesole looks like. It is a very small town, and we arrived right in the center of town. The bus pulls up, or the taxi, right here. In fact, we were smart and took the bus home. So we picked up the bus right here, and our tour today is going to focus on this area right behind the Duomo. We'll see the Duomo, and we'll see that right behind it is this giant archaeological area called the Zona Archeologica, where you have really beautiful Roman ruins. And then we came out of there and we went up a street over here called the Via Gramsci, which is where a friend of ours was located. We'll talk about that a little more later. Then we went over here, around here, and we went up to the very top of a hill in front of the church of San Francesco, where you get to see one of the most magnificent views in all of Italy. Then we came down and had lunch, and that was our day in Fiesole that you are going to be seeing in the next few minutes. So first of all, here is Florence, and this is a view of the church of Santa Croce taken from the Piazzale Michelangelo, which is of course a high hill just to the south of Florence. And off in the distance is where Fiesole is located. So if you're going to be either walking there, some people walk there, it's a very, very long walk, or taking a bus or a taxi, you would head in that direction. So this is the road up. And as you go up, you pass some really, really spectacular sights, as only Tuscany can give you. So this is the road up, and this is the view that you get as you go up this kind of narrow road. It's not intended to be a road that's intended for a lot of traffic. So this is what you get, and you go up this road. It's kind of steep. It's a typical road in Italy, going from the valley up to the top of a hill or a mountain. This is another view of the roads. Of course, I wasn't driving up here, and I never have. Usually when I go up here, Lydia drives me, and Lydia is an expert driver, having lived in Italy her whole life. But this is how the taxi went. And when you get midway up, this is the view you get if you look back into the valley at the City of Florence. And this is truly one of the most remarkable views in all of Italy. Because you're going up to Fiesole, you're looking back, and you can see many of the sites that we've become familiar with. Namely, right in the middle is that red dome, and that, of course, is Brunelleschi's dome of the Cathedral of Florence, Santa Maria della Fiore. And that's what Florence looks like. So this is a beautiful view on a really perfect day. And we keep climbing, though. We're now looking back the other way, looking up at the top of the hill to where Fiesole is. And as you drive up the hill, these are some of the sights that you get to see. And it's quite beautiful, as you could see. Houses dotting along the side of the mountain. And eventually you wind up in the center of town, in the main piazza. And there's a truck there on the right side, but the bus pulls up here and the taxi, and it's really a very crowded kind of spot. It would be if it were a big tourist location such as Siena or San Gimignano or Lucca or Pisa. It would, really be crowded looking. But this is a typical weekday. This is, I think, let's see, the day we went there was a Wednesday, I believe. So this is a Wednesday afternoon, around noon. And this is the walk that we took to get to the Roman ruins. And we walked through the front door of the Roman ruins, and it in itself gives you a spectacular view of the countryside. As you could see, it wasn't the perfect day for this. There were clouds in the distance, and there was a slight mist hovering over the valley. But this is the view we had. It was quite beautiful. And what you get to see are Roman ruins from the 3rd century BC. And these, are really very well preserved and quite beautiful. These are some of the things that really send my, pulse up, because I love looking at very, very well preserved Roman ruins. You could see the arch there, and this is actually the archway that leads to the theater that you're about to see in a few minutes. So these are the entrances coming into the theater, and there's part of the theater over there on the right side. To me, this seemed a little strange because this theater is built into the side of a mountain, side of a hill, which is the way the Greeks used to build their theaters. The Greeks used to build their theaters built into hills for support, looking out on the countryside. The Romans had their theaters and their amphitheaters. A theater was used for dramatic presentations. It was a semicircle. An amphitheater was kind of two semicircles put together into a circle, where they used to do their blood sports like gladiator combats and things of that nature. So I was a little surprised, but this was, 3rd century BC, so you're coming kind of out of the Greek period now into the Roman period, so it's quite possible that this is, a transitional moment in architecture. But you could see the archway over there on the left, where we saw from the other angle. And this is what the theater looks like. And when we climb to the top of the theater, this is what it looks like. And again, this is very, very unusual for a Roman theater. But it's very well preserved, and you can see that these are the seats where the people watch the performance. You could see the remnants of the stage over there. In case, you're not familiar with these things, these are where the people sat, and these are the plebeians sat up here, and the Roman senators sat in the front section, and this is where the stage was, right over here. Okay, so that's what a Roman theater looks like, and that's another view of it. And, again, it has a lot of elements of a Greek theater, because in a Greek theater, it looked out over the countryside. In a Roman theater, what you would have been looking at would be the building behind the stage, which was usually a Roman cityscape. So you're not seeing that, you're seeing the sort of a Greek perspective. This is another view of it. Look how beautiful that is. Sitting and watching a performance, maybe to be a little distracted by what you were seeing in the distance. This is just a view of the fields that surrounded these Roman ruins. And, you know, this is a, the Roman ruins are usually a little bit, you know, down, because a lot of earth has been built up over the years. So to get to a lot of Roman ruins, you have to go downstairs because the ground has risen over the years. These are some more of the views of the Zona Archeologica. This in fact is part of the Roman baths. This was a whole complex where there was a theater and there were Roman baths, which, you know, and the baths were not only places where people kind of congregated as they would at a YMCA with, you know, steam baths and things like that, but also places where they would have libraries and lectures and they could get haircuts and so on. It was a multifaceted place where people would go to take care of a lot of their bodily needs. And you could see some more Roman ruins. This is the primary reason for people to come up to Fiesole. This is the foundation of, obviously, a sculpture that used to be on top of that. There's some more. This is a close-up view of the arches of the baths. And then Laura noticed, I didn't notice this at first, but Laura noticed these sculptures. And, you know, she said, hey, look at this. And I said, yeah, you know, those must be Etruscan ruins. And she said, not really, because, you know, those look more modern. So she started taking some of the pictures of some of these sculptures that were located right in the middle of the Roman ruins. And, you know, she took quite a lot of them. You could see them right over there on top of that, that wall. There's a bunch of them up there. They're interspersed throughout this archaeological site. There's another one. You know, when I first saw this, I just thought they were ancient ruins, but, you know, Laura realized them for what they were. They're interspersed throughout. There's one, it's hard to see because it's of the same color as the concrete all around it. You know, the Romans built in concrete. That gave them the ability to create these freestanding buildings, the use of concrete. And there's a couple more over there. And, you know, Laura, being an artist, was quite taken by all of this. And there's another one. And it wasn't until I was putting together this show, gathering together all the pictures and adding a few maps and things from the internet, that Laura said, gee, let's see if we could figure out what this is. So we went online, and, you know, there's more of them over there. I mean, they're all interspersed, so it's sort of hard to see. But if you go up those stairs over there and look a little bit beyond that, you could see where all the sculptures are intertwined throughout this archaeological area. There's some more in there. If you look closely, this is the two that we're looking at now are really right in the middle. And I might be even missing a few that are scattered throughout. There's more over there. There's one over there on the right I see, and they just fit right in with all the rocks and stones. And we went online, and, you know, you could find anything that you want online, and this is a great thing, because we just Googled modern sculpture in the Zona Archeologico in May of 2012. That's all we put in the Google search, and it popped up that this is the fellow who was responsible for this sculpture. His name is Giuseppe Cavazzi, and the name of his show is The Figure Revealed, and it's in the Zona Archeologico in Fiesole. And within this archaeological complex are 24 sculptures in bronze, in wood, and in cast iron. And it turns out that Giuseppe was a restorer of frescoes and became a sculptor during the mid-1950s. And I believe he was born in 1936. I don't have that written in my notes, but I do remember reading that today, that he was born in 1936, and he's still alive, and this was his show. And we didn't know anything about it at the time. You know, this is what happens to us in Italy very often. We come upon a site, and you wind up seeing some really extraordinary sculpture. We did this once at the Sforza Castle in Milan, and came upon another sculpture exhibit that you will be seeing in a couple of weeks. So this is really quite amazing. This is a picture of him. Let me magnify that so you have a better look at that. This is him, obviously at a much younger age, doing his sculptures that appeared, some of which appeared in the exhibit that we just were looking at. And you know, that's pretty fascinating. I know my friend Rick would probably be very interested in this, and could shed some light on a lot of these things. He may even have heard of Giuseppe, but you could see this. This is quite beautiful. This reminds me, to a certain degree, of other things I've seen, by a sculptor named Marino Marini, some of the horse sculptures. And we have a friend who works with figures that don't quite look like this, but there's a certain similarity that I see. Her name is Judy Segunik, and she shows all over the Hudson Valley. And then we went back, of course, throughout the archaeological area, and we kind of finished up our tour. And you know, we just love these spots that show us some of the great archaeological figures. This is a view of the bell tower of the Duomo from the archaeological area. As you saw from the map earlier that I showed you, this is very close to where the cathedral is located. There are some very, very well-preserved steps leading to other parts of the archaeological area. This is the theater, but from the opposite point of view. You could see that it's built right into the side of the hill there. Very, very well preserved. And then we went inside the museum, and we got to see some more Etruscan and Roman artifacts. And here are some of them. There's a really beautiful museum that's attached to this whole area, and that's really quite fascinating. This looks modern to me. You know, I didn't, usually whenever there's anything involving art, I usually bounce these off Laura just before I'm about to go on, and she kind of, shed some light on it. But we were kind of scraping together a show here very quickly this afternoon, so we didn't really have time. But those are obviously some jugs, and to me they look like from the Etruscan period, from what I know. And this is obviously from either the Etruscan or the Roman period, with some jewelry. Or this could be, when I showed Laura this, she said, I think that's modern jewelry, but now I'm not even sure, I'll tell you. Okay, that was the entrance to the museum. That's some more of the sculpture. And some more pieces from the museum. Okay, now we're back to a map. I wanted to show you this so we could show you what the rest of the tour will look like. So the museum is right here, and here's the archaeological area, and here's the Duomo right here, so you can see why we could see. Here's here's the Roman theater right here, and we were standing right there, and you could see that the bell tower from the Duomo was obviously very clearly seen. Okay, so we're now going to go around here, around the Duomo, into the main part of town, and we're going to be going up Via Gramsci. And I'll tell you that story as we go along. Then we're going to come back into the piazza and take the climb up to the top of this hill. I think this is the hill right here. And we'll talk about that a little more later. That's a hill I had a very difficult time climbing. Oh, excuse me. That's not correct. Here's the hill. It's over here. Because here's the church of San Francesco, right here. So this is actually where we climbed. You know, it doesn't look like it because they can't give you the appearance of height, but this is all a climb to get to the top of this. And then I stopped at this point, and Laura continued up to the very top of it to another area up here. So that's what we're going to be doing now. So we're walking down the Via Gramsci to the this spot. And this is a store known as the Pasticceria Alcedo. And that fellow standing outside is a fellow by the name of Febo Ticci. Now, there is a project in the Hudson Valley known as Verona America, which is run by a bunch of female artists who exchanged their work with artists from northern Italy. And there was a show in the Hudson Valley in Kingston, I believe at the Artist Society of Kingston, ASK, where the people from northern Italy brought their work, and they had this wonderful 2-week convention with lectures and exchanging art and all these wonderful things. And they're planning to do another one of these in Italy this time. And they sent us with a packet of material, because we were going to be in Florence, to Fiesole to give it to this fellow Febo's wife, Loretta Galli. So we came up here, and Loretta had told me that her husband is a master chef. This is what he looks like. His name is Febo Ticci, and he had training in the art of pastry, being a pastry chef. And that's his assistant, Leonardo Chiari, over there on the left side. And these are some of their creations. Again, I haven't eaten dinner, so this is hard for me to look at, but look at all those delicious cakes that he's making. This is some of the things on the wall. I'll come back to this in a few minutes. But this was a picture that we took of Leonardo and Febo. And this is Loretta. So we gave her the packet of material, and to thank us for doing that, she and Febo and Leonardo gave us a tour of the pastry shop, which was really quite amazing. This is a picture of Laura together with Loretta, and you could see in the background what this place looks like, and it is just, look at that, it's just amazing. I mean, you know, it's basically a bakery store. But, you know, they have other things besides that. They have all the, you know, Vinsanto on there on the bottom with the after-dinner cordials. You're supposed to not only have pastries for dinner, but you're also supposed to have some, you know, some liqueur with that. And there's another view of it. And people were in here all day long, coming in and out, buying things. You know, it's also a bar, which, as you should know by now, in Italy, a bar is more than just a place to get liquor, but a place to get also food. So you can see there that there are, you know, cans of Coca-Cola and other things. And this is a video that Laura did. He was very reluctant to let Laura come back into his workshop, but this is a tour that he gave, a little demonstration of his pastry making. So, Ellen, I will ask you at this point, I'll go on your word.
You can go there.
This is good.
want me to go?
Un attimo solo, intanto questo è arrivo. Volete mangiare qualcosa?
Questa è torta di cioccolato.
There's a cake, chocolate and beer. Here's
Questo è cheesecake.
cheesecake.
Non ne fa Domino le foto? Per farle. Sono con il capo di omino. Lolli. E questa è mais, torta di mais. Tu puoi stare con gli omini, non è che te. Ma se tu riesci, vedi Lolli di questo.
C'è l'audio però. Vuoi stare zitto?
Allora dillo.
Sì, basta una signora così, va bene, più grande, cosa mettiamo? Questo cioccolato in mora, sì. Questi poi, dopo signora,
This is the young man. He's a very important person because he's helping a lot. Avvicinati anche te che non so
Vieni, fai, metti le
Dai, eccola. Scusatemi. Anche la Nicla.
Vieni, metti le mie stesso.
Vai, anche la Nicla.
Vieni, l'hanno lasciata.
Non bisogna ammazzare le cammelli. No.
posto? Allora, eccoci qua.
Questa è la tortina di meno. Riso sopra.
Oh, si va in America, ragazzi.
Allora, ecco qua. E qui ci sono.
Poi
Basta, no?
ecco qua.
Posso mettere
Posso?
qui?
Great, grazie. Qui c'è la sua rovina, signora? Prego. Allora, il sacchettino lo vuole così oppure trasparente? Questo? Solo di questi?
Okay, am I back?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, he was very reluctant to have us even go back there and do the photographing because of legal restrictions of having people who are not licensed to do this. This is, a very, it's a meticulous kind of a job. He's a craftsman, and he had to go to school for this, as did his assistant Leonardo. These are some of the pictures from the, and this is his connection. So the fellow who created this, who founded this store, is a fellow named Alcedo Fali. And during World War II, General Mark Clark, who commanded the American army that came up the Italian peninsula from their landing in Sicily and Anzio all the way up until they connected with the American army that was coming from the north that had landed at Normandy. So Mark Clark arrived in Fiesole one day and decided that Alcedo, I believe this was 1944, should be his own personal chef. So he paid him to come live with him in his place of residence when he was just outside of Florence at the Villa Salviati, and he brought Alcedo with him to Vienna, and this is an autographed picture of General Clark that is one of the treasured possessions of the pastry shop. Alcedo actually passed away in 1986, and Fabo is now the person in charge. That's a picture of Alcedo with the article written about Mark. That's Mark Clark right there. He's the tall fellow, very famous World War II general. And these are just some more things in the pastry shop. Fabo came to the pastry shop in 1955. Leonardo came to it in 2007. And Leonardo told me that he went to a special school in Florence known as the Pasticceria School to learn all the things that he had to learn in order to become a pastry chef. These are some of the things that they had there that are just unbelievable looking. A couple of more pictures. I got to move on because we're starting to run close on time. We came out then and we just took some pictures of the main piazza. This is the main piazza, and that's the bell tower that you can see from just about everywhere, including as you come up the hill from Florence. This is the main square in Fiesole. It's a very pretty town. It's a good place to go if you feel like not being among the crowds of Florence. And as I said, in the summer, it's just wonderful. This is the Duomo, the main cathedral. As you can see, it's yet another Tuscan church whose facade is unfinished. They create these beautiful churches, but somehow when it comes to the facade, they leave it out for a while. That one has been left out. And now we're climbing up this hill to get to the great view in front of the church of San Francesco. So we're climbing up this hill, and that's what it looked like. And we're going up there, and little by little, we're climbing up. This is a view looking back, and we still had quite a bit to go to get to the top. And I got to tell you, I had a very hard time with this. But as you go up this hill, this is the view you get as you pass some of these amazing vistas. There's some more climbing up the hill. And I couldn't help but think, there's a restaurant over there to the left, which would have been a good idea to stop and have something to eat along the way, because this is the tremendous hill that you have to climb. Reminded me of this one, which is the one that we did many, many weeks ago when we spoke about Civita di Banreggio. So as I'm climbing up this one, I thought of this one, which I thought was a piece of cake compared to the one that I was now climbing. And it was very, very difficult, but as you turn backwards, this is the view you get, and it's almost worth it. Laura was saying, yeah, but it's worth it, and I'm saying, I just hope I could get up there without having a heart attack. That's what I'm thinking of. And the townspeople who were in their 60s and 70s and 80s are just scooting up this area. There was a stairway which I refused to go up. This is a view looking back. And when you get to the top, this is what you see. A really beautiful spot with very interesting buildings. And you could see that you could go even further, but I refused. I said to Laura, I am not going any further than this. So I found the beautiful view. This is just a view, but looking backwards at that restaurant that we had passed earlier. And you could just literally sit on a bench and stare at this incredible view. Now there's Florence. If you could see off over there in the distance on the right side is the conglomeration of some buildings, and those buildings are the buildings of Florence. So this is what you see as you look back. Beautiful sculptured trees, and there's the city of Florence. And this is not the greatest day because you can see it's a little overcast, so we didn't get the best view. You can, if you look very, very closely, see the Duomo, the cathedral, and the campanile, right in the center. But it's kind of difficult to see. And I can't really make this, perhaps I can. Let me just go up. Nope. Too much. And it's going to take too long, I think, to get it to the exact moment. So you just have to take my word for it that that's an amazing view. There's another view of it. And, okay, so that's Florence. And people come up here for this reason as well, to look back and see the beautiful city of Florence in the distance. It started to get even cloudier, so it became even more difficult. But this is the spot where I decided to stop and not go any further. And I found myself a bench, which I sat at the bench, and I said to Laura, I am not going any further. You can go, you could take pictures, and I am going no further. So I sat there, and Laura, and looking at this view, which I thought was pretty nice, a good spot to stop, and Laura began to climb this hill. And she had to climb those steps to get to the top of that spot there to get pictures of some doors. Of course, we know that Laura loves to take pictures of doors, and this church, which was at the top of the hill. So this is I'm not with Laura now, she's alone, taking pictures, these beautiful pictures of these stone buildings with relation to this church. So this was really quite amazing. She said it was worth it because you got some beautiful pictures. And then she came down to where I was staring at this view, and we decided to then descend this hill together. And we started going down, and as we went down that hill, and I'll tell you, it wasn't that much easier going down this hill than it was going up, because it's very, very steep. But, you could see the piazza over there in the distance, so at least we had that. And finally, you wind up in the piazza, and there's the Duomo with the bell tower. And we stopped at this restaurant to have lunch, and this was a really beautiful restaurant. There was an accordion player that played for us while we had our lunch, and we had it's Italy, so we had a little pasta and some salad, and it was really quite wonderful. And that was the end of the day. We then found the bus, and there it is, as it is over there in the distance, which we missed that bus and had to wait for the next one, but it was certainly a worthwhile trip. And now we're back to the beginning, and I hope you enjoyed that. And I honestly cannot tell you what next week's show is going to be, because it might be the show that I was going to do tonight, which is the show on the origins of the Woodstock Public Access television station, or it might be something else depending upon Bart's health. So thank you very much for watching, and once again, buona notte e buona fortuna.